And I try to tell like new families to forest school, this is rung true, and they've come back to me and said, wow, that was really awesome. But I tell them like, we're going to test their physical discomfort first. And as they learn that they can handle being uncomfortable in cold or wet or hot, they'll remember that they can also be uncomfortable being sad or angry or, those feelings that are uncomfortable too, that like we can get through uncomfortable things. And I think nature is such an awesome way to teach us that or remind us of that, when we're struggling.
If you're anything like me, you have probably noticed how much better you feel when you've been outside. Why is that? Why is that when we get to spend time outside, whether it's in nature or just to walk in the park or just walk around the office complex when you're at work on your lunch break, what is it about the sunshine, the fresh air, or even a cloudy day or being out in the rain that just kind of makes us feel better? I don't know. I don't have the facts. I do know there are studies out there, and the guest for today is going to help us shine a light on that. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool what she does. Her name is Tina Brower Kraska, and she is the executive director and co-founder of Red Oak Forest School. And I got to admit, I really wish I had a Red Oak Forest School when I was growing up. I mean, I was lucky. I grew up in a small town and had a very large river just blocks from my school and blocks from my home. So I did kind of grow up outdoors, but the school, if it was more outdoors, would have been nice. But as executive director and co-founder, Tina brings this rare blend of ecological expertise, creative vision, and deep community engagement to her work. She holds a bachelor's in natural resource conservation and a master's from the University of Kentucky, where she studied the ecology and behavior of peregrine falcons. We're going to dig into that because I am curious about that. And the cool thing about her studies is through her work, she was dubbed the Peregrine Lady. So we're going to find out about that. Tina has also served as a naturalist in Ohio and a raptor biologist with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, focusing on public engagement and community-based conservation, which, of course, if you know anything about me and my work, exploring that community-based conservation and why it's so important, it's so cool to hear those stories. So we're going to ask her a bit about that as well. She's also a certified Southern Appalachian naturalist, committed to connecting youth and communities to the natural world through education, stewardship, and citizen science. Here's one part about Tina's story I really appreciate. Before I introduce her, I want to share with you, she's an accomplished photographer and small business owner. She founded one of Chicago's top photography companies, recognized among the top 10 in Chicago. Not easy to do. Chicago's a big city, and apparently it's the nation's third largest wedding market, so being a good photographer there is important as well, and impressive that she was within the top 10 there. She's been featured in many print publications and has won several awards for her work as well. She also co-founded the Red River Rock House, a celebrated farm-to-table cafe in the Red River Gorge. And of course, to date, modern time right now, Tina has been featured in several speaking engagements, including a TEDx talk that she's done. You can look that up online very easily. Just put in her name and TEDx and it'll pop up. I'm going to actually reference that because I watched it and I want to ask her about something she mentions in the TEDx talk. So we'll get to that in a bit too. She's also done podcasts, not just this one, but the Nature Guys. And she's also in the film. You might have remembered my second guest that I had on this podcast. His name is James Parker, and he did the documentary In Our Nature. He features part of this school that Tina has started in that documentary as well. So with all of that, and without further ado, Tina, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to join me on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
In the intro and reading over your bio and myself just doing some homework on you before having you on, and I'll just mention to the audience as well, I came across you, James Parker, who was in episode 2 of Animals, Nature, and You. He's got this great film he did with his producer, Juliet, In Our Nature. Your school that you're in charge of is featured in that film. And talking to him later, then after recording with him, he's like, you really ought to get in touch with Tina and find out what she's about. Sounds like it'd be, in line with your podcast. So with that, with everyone's already heard the intro there as far as who you are, kind of what you've done. I want to start with this cool nickname you got in your history, Peregrine Lady, because I feel like that might be an insight as to where we started with heading towards creating the school and doing everything you do for kids.
Yeah, gosh, those are some of my favorite memories. In graduate school, I kind of lucked out and got offered a position to be a part of this reintroduction of peregrine falcons in Eastern Kentucky. I was super interested in animal behavior, but I'm not particularly one of those people that's like, this is my favorite animal. Um, so I was excited to learn as much as I could about the peregrine. So I just got, super excited about it. And I was one of those 20-something-year-olds that looked more like I was 15 years old. So I was very small. I looked really young, but I had, kind of a take charge attitude. So part of my uh, job, if you will, in my
Mhm.
research was to go to these power plants along the Ohio River in Kentucky, because that's where the nesting pairs of peregrines were at the time. And what my research was focusing on is there any difference between the behavior of the young for fledglings that do have parents raising them versus the hacked individuals out in eastern Kentucky? So I just, walked around there, excited and in charge of, the peregrines, and was working with people who were from a rural background. They're in the kind of coal um, power uh, power plant kind of background in rural Kentucky. Didn't know what to make of me, but I was just excited to get up there. And they were a little bit nervous because the peregrines, if you know much about them, they have no problem striking the workers when they get up on these smokestacks. They're very territorial. So, but I was just too excited to be afraid. So, we went up there and we'd observe the peregrines, and I was there multiple days a week. 8 weeks a summer, 8 to 10 weeks a summer for multiple summers. So, they just started calling me the Peregrine lady. And I remember I was supposed to be covered head to toe in like protective wear, but I was young and invincible. So it was way too hot. It's like 100 degrees. And so I stripped all that off once I would get on top of the roofs to observe the peregrines, and I'd be covered in coal dust, when I would
Wow.
come down at the end of the day. And, so usually they were just shaking their head at me going, what the heck, what is she doing up there? But yeah, it just became a term of endearment then.
And what a great nickname to have. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
peregrines are awesome.
Yeah.
Was there, you had mentioned you didn't really have a favorite animal, et cetera, et cetera. What was it that brought you to wanting to observe or being told to observe the peregrines?
Yeah, that was mainly just one of those things that, an opportunity presented itself. I went to the University of Kentucky, and after I graduated, I went and did like a park manager position in Ohio. And some of the faculty I worked with got that project, and they thought I would be a great fit. And yeah, I just loved ecology and animal behavior. Like kind of first and foremost, that was what was most interesting to me. So I think they knew that that aspect of the project would be interesting to study, since there hadn't been much in the way of observations or historical record of peregrines in Kentucky. So they were on our list of species to watch and observe, potentially bring back, and but there just wasn't too much known about the process and the species in the area.
Right. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
part of my world and my history is the conservation side of things with animals, and the fact that the big broad we of people
Hmm.
that are concerned about them would say, hey, it looks like their numbers are dropping. We need to protect them. But there's observations need to be done, documentation needs to be done, science needs to be able to say, no, here's what's actually happening, here's where it's happening, here's why it's happening. And then
Hmm.
present that to then help create protections and things of that nature. So that's cool that you got to do that. And prior to us recording, you had mentioned that you've always enjoyed zoos growing up. That was your gateway drug into ecology
Yeah.
and getting excited about animals. So with zoos and just a general love for animals and the peregrine studies, again, I go back to the intro where I read through your bio. You've done so many things. Obviously, photography has been a part of your passion. That you've been able to do things with a farm to table, etc. But really, it's what's mentioned in the movie and what piqued my interest in talking to you is your school.
Hmm.
And I saw your TED talk, and there's a bit you mentioned in that TED talk, sort of that moment where yeah. Well, I should just let you say it, but I loved it. I just loved where you the way you presented is that here I am, someone who loves wildlife and nature and ecology, and I'm hoping to raise my daughter with that love. And I dropped this information on her, but there was a moment you talk about where she became the teacher. Can you
Yeah.
share that real quick with my audience?
Yeah, I would love to. It's such a poignant moment in my life. just being out on the trail, just excited as a young mom to have my daughter, just kind of old enough to tag along and start to absorb the world and communicate with her. And just very eager and excited to show her the world, through my understanding and my lens. Hey, let's go here. Let's see this. And we were also with friends, so there was a part of me that was also like, we have to keep up. We have to kind of go where we're going. And she was so like curious and energetic, and always went everywhere barefoot. That was kind of a key thing. She always was running around barefoot. So we're on this trail. She happens upon this like amazing moss, which, is so nice to stand on. It just feels so soft and sweet. So, she kind of passed that, while running and found it. And it was just like such a amazing sensory experience for her. And she was like, Mom, you need to come and take your shoes off and stand on this moss with me. And I was like, no way, we gotta go. Our friends are, running up ahead. We gotta keep up. Like, we don't have time. We got a lot of hiking to do. And she was like, no, 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 no. You need to, in her, young voice, but a lot of words here, but, you need to stop and have this experience with me. And I still resisted a little bit. I don't want to take my shoes off, just tried to, any excuse I could get to keep her moving along. But she was insistent. And I finally, knew we're not getting anywhere until I stay on this moss, which is fine. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to
Yeah.
relent as a
Yes.
parent. Yeah, I get it.
I relented. And so I took my shoes off. We stood on it together and we just locked eyes. And it was just so sweet and special. Like the way she looked at me was like, see, I tried to tell you, like, this is incredible. And she was right. It was just, not only was it a sensation that I hadn't felt in so long, right? Because I'm not walking around barefoot. I'm not stopping and taking, that time to notice what's around me. I'm just kind of being swept away with what's happening around me. And she really helped me pause in that moment and just take the moment, and share it with her. That was a big part of it, is just sharing that experience, making that moment together. Um, she's very persistent and tenacious, and kind of getting you to see what she's trying to tell you. But something about that moment and that shared experience was the first time that I really realized, like, she had so much to teach me. I'm not just placating her, or being compliant or kind of, initially I was just trying to like get to the next thing, but
Right. Yeah.
but it became kind of a window into, a new way that we could have a relationship with each other in nature where, I listened to her and without, an agenda of just like getting through whatever, but just really like see that she has, the eyes and the sensations and the hearing. She's taking in like a totally different world than me as, a young and open and creative and curious person. So she's been showing me so much ever since. And now she's 16. And it's just, I'm so thankful that she was so persistent, because she's opened my eyes to a lot of things along the way that I probably would have just zoomed on by.
Yeah. And it reminds me of how much I think we start to, as we grow and get into, and you painted that picture so well, that you had an agenda. You want to catch up with the friends. We got to do this. Our minds as adults, we're like always on to the next thing before we're through the first thing. And she's not there yet in that scenario. She's not at that. It's just, this is now, and this is what I'm doing. And that's all I got to think about. And I think it's wonderful that kids have that. And if we're observant enough as adults, we can be reminded that we need to step into that as well. Not all the time. Obviously, we have a lot of responsibilities, a lot's going on, but that reflection, that opportunity where the child becomes the instructor. No, you need to stop, take your shoes off,
Yes.
and just go
Yes.
wow for a second.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that because I am a true believer. I believe just from my own observations of over 30 years of working with people and animals, there is an innate curiosity we are born with for the natural world, for animals, for our surroundings. And as we get older, that's kind of systematically taken away, or, for better or for worse, we grow out of that to a certain degree. And that's one thing I love about reading up about your school and what you're doing there with the school. It's Red Oaks Forest School. And I'm not going to even try to explain it all. I'll have you share that. But I also, with that sort of segue then from the story about your daughter there, were there steps in between that moment? It's such a pivotal moment for you before you got to the part of opening the school, or was it sort of like that was the launch off point? Like, is there a in between?
There is an in between in the sense of the way that it just organically grew.
Mhm.
That was pretty instrumental in kind of, I love how you said reminding ourselves, like, because it is a remembering. That's how I'm starting to feel it and see it now.
Mhm.
It's something that we're born with, and it's just about awakening and remembering that, we're all connected. And I never ever imagined I would be working with kids. I never even planned to have kids. I loved animals. I wanted to work in conservation. I wanted to be one of those people that's like not around people, just around plants and animals. But having my own child, I just became so curious about their curiosity. And it was like every kid I met was the same, like
Yeah.
they were so magical in their wonder and their awe and their curiosity. And so um, it was right around that time, just shortly after that, a couple of friends and I realized that we weren't making enough time to get outside with our own kids. And for me,
Mhm.
especially having that background and that education, it was like, this is ridiculous, like I will not raise my child the way that I was raised, so disconnected to nature. So it was just a point of accountability
Mhm.
that if we find a group of friends, we can all say, we're going to get outside. And it started with just once a month. Like, we're going to put it on the calendar once a month, rain or shine, hot or cold. Too bad what the weather is, it's on the calendar and we're doing it. And um, just those first couple experiences were just so magical that we just started doing it more and more and more. But it really just started as a meetup, like put it on the calendar, invite a few friends, meet up at the spot, see you there. And that's all it was. So, yeah, from there, people started to hear about it. And all of a sudden, it was about 30 kids. And we're,
Wow.
meeting at parking lots in the Red River Gorge. And the co-founders and I all had different backgrounds in how we connected to nature. Some were more science, some were more literature. But the parents started asking us to like teach them more. I'm doing the air quotes, and we were like, no, the kids are teaching us, and we need to make this space for play, but recognizing that we were working with a homeschool community, and that we were asking a lot of people to kind of dedicate this time, we decided to kind of meet in the middle. And that's, I think, where a lot of our minds got kind of activated towards like, what could this become? How could we kind of help parents feel like their kids are being, educated and they're checking the boxes, but we would have our own um, kind of line that we're drawing in the soil, that that we're going to also mandate free play exploration. We saw amazing things happening those first few years with the kids when we would just give them the space to be outside. I mean, they were creating entire worlds, they were creating shops, they were they had commerce and trade, and with all these natural materials, they had roles. And um so we just started to kind of create our own way of doing things. For those of you that might not know, the forest school movement really is centered around child-led exploration and learning, and the homeschool movement is a little bit more there's a lot more interest in kind of teacher instruction, teach our kids just different ways outside of traditional school. So we kind of wanted to blend those things. And yeah, just started growing from there. And that was about 11 years ago. Now we have 4 campuses. I think we have 8 forest school programs, 4 community programs. We have hundreds of kids enrolled. We have outreach. So we're connecting to thousands of people a year. It's just been an amazing journey.
And just for people listening, where you see it's Kentucky based, right?
Yes. Oh,
And
sorry.
so
Yes.
is it all the campuses and all the outreach within Kentucky only, or are you spreading out even further now?
Right now we're very happy in Kentucky. We have two central Kentucky locations and two eastern Kentucky locations. So those are quite different areas in a lot of ways. So we're kind of bridging some of those differences in Kentucky. Yep.
Sure. If is now, is there a conglomeration or a group or an organization, association of some sort? Let's say somebody is in Connecticut or someone's in Texas or someone's in Oregon and they think, I would love my kid to have this kind of exposure. Is there a hub of anywhere that they could go to see if there's something in their area as well? Or what would you
Yeah.
recommend?
Yeah. The Natural Start Alliance is umbrellaed under the North American Association of Environmental Education, but they have their own website, their own everything. Most forest schools and nature-based programs are focused on early childhood, so they're kind of housed under that. You know, Natural Start Alliance primarily focuses on early childhood, so they have like a map of the United States where you can poke around and see where you can find other forest schools, nature-based learning. They
Mhm.
do a lot more of that than traditional environmental education, which is primarily done in a classroom. So, this nature-based education movement has been really exciting to watch grow. I mean, it's just grown exponentially, and I think that's because this younger generation has been exponentially disconnected from the natural world. So,
Right.
there's plenty of people like us who are like, that is not, I'm not going to, let that stand. I'm going to do something about it. So, yeah.
With that, you mentioned in the description about what you were observing in the kids that they were creating these worlds within nature and trade and commerce and having different roles. And I think if somebody doesn't truly have quite the full picture yet, the value in that and what you're seeing, it might just come across, okay, that's cute and anecdotal, but that's no different than a regular school. It's just outside instead. You had mentioned in some of your previous interviews I was looking into that there are studies out there that show that time in nature can help curb symptoms of ADHD, can help with depression and anxiety. And I know your school, you do a lot of great things with kids to allow them to express their experiences as well.
Mhm.
Can you share a little bit about those studies and what you know and what not just what you observe, but what you know on how this is impactful on so many levels other than just like, well, yeah, it's fun. It's just outdoors.
Yeah. Yeah, the Children in Nature Network is an amazing resource for that, for any listeners that want to go deeper into this. But just the profound effects of nature on all people, is really remarkable to see. I feel like it's something that we just innately know or remember once we spend any time. But of course, we love research and we love science. So yeah, just the ability to reduce blood pressure, reduce stress, improve academic performance. There's been a lot of studies about that, about how kids who have those breaks outside, even traditional school, more breaks to get outside will help them actually do better in classes. It improves attention. It improves cognitive ability, cooperation, teamwork, communication. I mean, all of these, skills that really help us to be confident, engaged citizens are. Um, it's so important that they're developed in early childhood, and that gives a really strong foundation to build on. And so if kids are not exposed to those kinds of settings where they can develop communication, develop teamwork, develop cooperation, it makes it harder and harder. It's like you can never really catch up in terms of just how to navigate the world. Also, it helps with your immune system, so you get less sick by just having exposure to the soil, the microbes in the soil that get into your lungs, into your body, help build that immune system and that gut fauna. There's a lot of new research in the medical field now about the importance of that gut fauna and flora. And some of that comes from just like literally putting your hands in the soil,
Yeah.
um, which is so cool. It's so cool now to me to see science explaining the pathways about things that we've just always done or we've always known inherently, to kind of demystify, why are you healthier if you're spending more time outside? We can
Yeah.
measure those things and see those changes in our body and our minds. And we've seen that over and over again with our students, especially kids on the autism spectrum who, you know, that sensory overwhelm that can happen, especially
Mhm.
indoors. There's a way for their bodies to have a full body sensory experience, which I've personally witnessed many times with our kids. That helps them to stay regulated, and be able to kind of communicate better about what's going on in their body to help us find solutions. We've had so many families say that they've never seen their child um, doing as well as they do in forest school. And in fact, that the effects can last for days. And
Mhm.
some of those kids go to traditional public school and they only come to forest school 1 day a week. But the impact of that time in nature, that full day, outside, connecting with other kids and going through those experiences helps them stay regulated in a traditional, more difficult setting for days, which is just like, amazing to me to hear.
And I think it's fair to offer up that what you are explaining right now, the impact this has on kids of neurodivergency and neurotypical and everything in between and all around the spectrum everywhere. I can also say my own personal experience as an adult who had a very stressful last 3 years, also dealing with some grief in my life because of a loss of family member. Every Sunday I would go out and hit the trails. And it was such a wonderful reason. I'm hearing you talk about kids like they're going out once a week and they're good for the week, and then in the normal space, uh, you know, I want, and the reason I share that is I want listeners, adults with kids, young adults, teenagers, whoever might be listening to this episode, understand and recognize that yes, you're talking about kids in school, but it goes beyond that. It's
Mhm.
in the sense of the idea of being outside, connecting with nature, and by connecting with nature, I think some people might have the idea like, oh, I've got to go rescue a bird, or I've got to go,
Yeah.
help dig out a creek, and it could
Yeah.
be as simple as just being outside and
Yeah.
touching dirt or appreciating the wind blowing through the trees, any of that. And
Yeah.
I think it's so cool that you have this program, you have this school, you've done this. It's been going on for a while now. That there's a network throughout the United States where others can get involved. Can I ask, what would you say or recommend to someone who's might be listening to this going to the point they're motivated, like, maybe I want to start one in my area. I can't find one in my area. I want to start one in my area, something like this. What would you say would be the important first steps or things they should look at to start their own version of this program?
Well, first off, I would just recommend that people kind of start the way we did, just get together with some friends, hold yourselves accountable, stick to that schedule. That's the most important thing because those repeated experiences will build on each other. It builds those bonds, especially with the kids, and then even on the days that you're feeling like it's too cold or too wet or whatever, you'll be surprised to see your kids are saying, no, we're going. And then you're going to be so glad you did. So,
Yeah.
any that makes it more accessible that like literally anyone can do this, and it
Well,
can help.
I mean, you build
Yeah,
community too.
exactly.
Because you've got that group that's now holding each other accountable. So
Yep.
your foundation is repeated behavior of getting outside. You've got your community, and then what?
Yeah. So then, from there, we had the advantage of having backgrounds in, um, the natural sciences. So it was kind of easy to just get started. Uh, teaching these classes, we found a land partner once we kind of grew out of our public spaces. A lot of people do use public spaces, and that's totally great.
Hmm.
If you have a good relationship with your local Parks and Rec department, you probably find that they're inviting, and you can just set up shop there. I would say keep it simple. Um, we to this day don't have our own building. We partner with universities, with public spaces with private landowners. And that's really helped us to be nimble and to expand and serve more people. So, find a place that you love, find a place you want to share, invite people to come there, and just, start looking around. When you want to start getting into more formal processes, I would say connect with your local agencies like environmental education. I feel like the environmental education space is recognizing how fast forest school and nature-based learning is growing, and they want to support that because it's such an exciting, addition to traditional environmental education. So I would look for environmental education associations in your area. Um, Wealth of resources. I mean, we're a nonprofit, but there are a lot of forest schools that are, they're not a nonprofit model, they're just a business. So you can start with a simple business license and, probably don't want to get into too much of that nitty gritty, but, find those
Right,
support
but
systems
yeah.
that will give you those resources and reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions.
That's an excellent resource.
Yeah.
Always good to network and pick the brain of somebody who's been ahead of you on that path, right? So
Mhm.
that's great that you offer that up as well. And I want to go back to, I like what you said about the idea of community getting together, schedule it, and rain or shine. That's one thing that I have been told, because I live in San Diego. I'm
Yeah.
spoiled. Our winter is 2 weeks and it's just rain, you know.
Yeah.
But even that being said, because I'll always be like championing, get outside, get outside.
Yeah.
People are like, I'm in New York. I'm not going outside in December. But I love the fact that you're really a champion of rain or shine, no matter
Yeah.
how cold it is, because I know I grew up in Washington State and I was
Mhm.
outside all the time. When it was raining, I loved watching how the water flowed, even just down the driveway or through the garden and into the gutter or whatever, because it gives you an idea of how rivers are made. You
Yep.
can make that comparison by watching that happen. Or when it snowed, how come the snow's piled up on one side of the tree and stuck to these leaves but not to those leaves, or whatever. And that's all that idea of connecting with your natural world
Mhm.
and understanding the world we live in. One of the things I like to say is that nature allows us to feel connected even when we're feeling disconnected.
Mhm.
And it's a broader stroke. There's not an exact because this, but I know, again, my own personal experience. My daughter, I take her out for hikes quite often, and it's funny. She'll say like, Dad, when we first got started, I didn't really want to go, but I thought it was really cool. I really like it. And like, oh, I want to go again. Remind me next time that I like this. And again, it's that idea. I think that when we're out there, we realize, wow, this feels good.
Yeah.
This is neat to see that butterfly, that moth, that bee, that plant, whatever it might happen to be, versus we get so sucked into our screens
Mhm.
and all of a sudden an hour's gone because we were doom scrolling or whatever you want to call it. And I've said before, James and I talked about this too, that there is a time and place to have your screen even with you on a hike so you can
Yeah.
take a picture of a plant or identify a bug or something. So it's not, anti-technology, but it
Right.
is the remembering the value of being outside, being in nature. And I love the fact that you have this school program, that it is so impactful that you get to see it all the time. And I can't say it enough. It's also part of our adult life as well, reminding ourselves that we have that natural curiosity. It's so cool. I love it.
Yeah. I will just add on to that in Kentucky we have all four seasons, and we really, we will cancel once it's kind of below 25 because people don't want to
Okay,
come.
fair enough. Fair
They don't want
enough.
to come. But I have found, even for myself, like, I started forcing myself to kind of drink my coffee outside,
Hmm.
and I do it all year round. And now I'm kind of shocked when I look at the temperature and it says 25, and I'm like, I feel kind of comfortable. I just have a blanket and a coat. So I think there is a tolerance can be built for heat
Sure.
and cold. And that's part of the problem is that we feel, we are literally air conditioned and heated to a perfect temperature all year round, but
Yeah.
our bodies are absolutely capable of adapting to a much bigger range. And I would say that I'm comfortable level now, from 35, to 85, and I start to get uncomfortable, outside of that range, but it's still, there's still ways to, be outside in those extremer
Yeah.
temperatures and find a lot of those benefits of the relief, even if it's just, eh, you know, um, a few minutes. That I can be guilty of, like, something has to be like big or I don't do it, so I have to remind myself, like, even if it's just 10 minutes, 10 minutes is enough, and 10 minutes is going to be great, and it will kind of refresh and revive you and help you to just take that deep breath and reduce your stress. So it's like a little bit is enough, a lot is great, but just do it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I would even go so far as to argue that, we can be comfortable in 35 to 85 degrees, but sometimes it's good to be uncomfortable outside
Yes,
too.
absolutely.
And I'm
Absolutely.
not saying that, I'm not trying to call you out. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
No.
in addition to that, in
Yeah.
the sense of there's times where I'll go out for a trail run and it just feels too hot, in the summer
Yeah.
here, and I'm running, but it's like, but maybe it's kind of good to push myself a little bit and sweat and be a little uncomfortable,
Oh,
so
yes. I did not mean to imply that I don't go outside of the range. It's just like
right, right. No, no,
I'm
I know.
not
I
comfortable.
figured that out.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but it's so true. Like, that's something that Forest School I think is so amazing at helping kids, especially now, who are like brought into the world surrounded by comfort with the
Yeah.
expectation that comfort is a given, that everybody experiences comfort all the time. Like,
Yeah.
one, that's just not true. That's not true of our world. But two, like, that is, that's not true of our entire existence. So, to get uncomfortable is, essential to our resilience and to becoming strong and being able to, handle the ups and downs of life that we're
Yeah.
inevitably going to face. And I try to tell like new families to Forest School, this is rung true. And they've come back to me and said, wow, that was really awesome. But I tell them, like, we're going to test their physical discomfort first. And as they learn that they can handle being uncomfortable in cold or wet or hot, they'll remember that they can also be uncomfortable being sad or angry or, those feelings that are uncomfortable
Mhm.
too, that like we can get through uncomfortable things. And I think nature is such an awesome way to teach us that or remind us of that, when we're struggling.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that even goes into what you mentioned in Kentucky there. You've got all four seasons. Being out in nature consistently, you start to see the seasons change. You get to see the beautiful flowers and you see them die off and dry up and, go dormant, but then come back and bud. I think there's so many lessons for us about life and resilience for
Hmm.
ourselves in our modern times by spending time in nature, whether it's
Hmm.
being uncomfortable with temperature or having soggy socks because you were in the creek or
Yeah.
whatever it might be,
Yeah.
So I really appreciate this school that you're doing, the work that you're doing and advocating for. I appreciate it that you are also even saying to my audience, if there's someone out there that wants to learn more about it, how to do it, reach out to me.
Hmm.
As we're wrapping up here, is there anything that we didn't share or talk about that you would feel is of value or a nugget of knowledge to leave with the audience?
I would just say, don't forget to slow down.
Mm,
It's easy to get outside and then keep the pace that we're doing everything else in our life with. And that's I know I talked about it with my daughter, but I just think it's worth saying again and leaving off with, um, you know, taking those moments to slow down and really observe and, ask yourself questions like, if you don't feel curious, if you don't know, like, okay, how am I even supposed to be curious? Like, I promise that if you just sit and stare at something for just a few minutes, that curiosity will, like, bubble up and it will get you out of whatever you're stuck in your head. And it's just such an amazing feeling. So just don't forget to slow down when you're out there too.
nice. I like that very much. Yeah. I saw a post today that someone was saying that someone was saying like slow hiking is just walking. And I'm like, it's actually some of the best walking you could do. Slowing down
Yeah.
in nature. That's slow hiking. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's great. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. So, how can people find you or find more about the school? What are the ways to find more information if someone's listening to this. And of course, I'll drop this information in the episode notes as well. So there'll be links there, but say it out loud too. So someone who's listening who can't check the show notes right now.
So you can find us online at redoaksforestschool.org. And we are on Instagram at redoaks_explorers. And we're on Facebook at Red Oaks Forest School. And I'm on LinkedIn as Tina Brower Kraska. And I would just love to connect in any of those ways.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tina. I appreciate this conversation so very much. And I want to invite you to, if anything comes up in the world of nature schools that you feel you want to share, reach out to me, let me know. I'd love to have you back on the show and talk more about this, because that's really what we talked about today is the heart of this podcast. I get to talk to conservationists, animal care specialists, educators, someone like yourself who's really embedded deeply in this nature school. And I really want to make sure we start sharing the stories of the importance of reconnecting with nature, whether it's keeping kids connected that already understand that curiosity, or reminding adults that we have that in us and we need to dig down sometimes and expose ourselves in a good way to nature. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Can't wait to come back.
And thank you, listeners and watchers, viewers, if you will, if you're watching on YouTube. I really appreciate everyone who's been tuning in, watching, and listening. In conversations like this with Tina, the opportunity, came about from interviewing James Parker with his movie, In Our Nature. And Tina and her school featured in that movie, like I mentioned in the interview. It gives me hope for the future when there are people out there sharing these stories like James is doing, but then people doing the work like Tina's doing, working with kids, not only observing the difference and impact that it makes with these kids, but then the parents notice it, that there's studies and there's science out there that show this is important to remain connected to the natural world in some way and to nature. And then to be able to sit down and have that conversation with her, to remind myself even of my own experience, like, oh yeah, well, she's saying that about those kids and how it's impacting them. I'm like, yeah, when I was going through some struggles these last couple of years, getting out once or twice into nature really helped me reset, really recalibrated me. And when things were getting really tough for me, I would remember, hey, get outside, whether it's get your bare feet in the grass or go for a walk, whatever it might be. So with that, there are notes down below in the episode notes how you can get in touch with her. Of course, my information there is Zoology Rick on pretty much all platforms at their social media, zoologyrick.com for my website, where you can find out more information about the work that I do, how to get in touch. And then please, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. This podcast is continuing to grow, and I appreciate it. Undoubtedly, you are sharing this with other people, getting other people to listen as well, connecting with me on social media. You can also connect with the podcast on social media. There's an Instagram up for it. You just the name of the podcast, Animals, Nature, and You. And you can connect there to keep up with all things podcast only, or connect with me, Zoology Rick, if you'd like to keep up with all sorts of other stuff as well. So if you're following or subscribe, you won't miss any of those. Thanks again for listening. Have a good one, everybody.